Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you just a little bit of Marvel and Spider-Man news. You may or may not have woken up this morning or even seen it last night, late last night if you were up. Spider-Man is coming to the cinematic Marvel universe. What that means is that Sony and Marvel have worked out some kind of a deal, and I'm sure all the details you can look up online. They're on various different websites. They've worked out some kind of a financial deal so that the rights to the character go back to Marvel, or at least for the movies, and well. Sony gets some kind of financial, restitution, but it's all being handled cinematically, creatively by Marvel. So Marvel's getting back one of their marquee characters. We are going to see, it's already been announced, we're going to see Spider-Man is going to make his initial appearance, in the Marvel universe, in the continuity of the movies that they're doing. In one of the upcoming movies, and then he will get his own movie. So the theories are abound about who's he going to be? Is it going to be Peter Parker? Is it going to be Miles Morales? Is it going to be Garfield? Is Andy Garfield coming back? What movie is he going to appear in? How are they going to introduce him? Here's what some of the theories are, and this has been talked about for quite some time, with everybody hoping and prognosticating that maybe this would actually happen. It's not going to be Andy Garfield. I mean, he did a good job representing Spider-Man as Spider-Man. The writing in those movies weren't as great. They didn't do as well in the box office. Probably what helped precipitated this. But as a Peter Parker, he may have been just a little bit too cool. But however you feel about Andy Garcia, Andy Garfield, there's an image. Let's see a meme for that one. However you feel about Garfield, he kind of had a falling out, maybe did a little insulting of Sony at one point, and he probably wasn't going to be in the next Spider-Man movie anyway. But with Marvel getting it back, I think they're going to want to try and just restart the whole thing. I'm hoping it's not an origin story. We've heard the origin story. We know. We've seen Uncle Ben die enough times. With big power, great power comes great responsibility. We know it. We got it. We got the point. Let's just have him be introduced in a subtle way into one of these movies. We know who he is. I mean, it would be great to just have him be inserted without having to go and spend screen time on all that background. But they're going to do a solo movie. Hopefully, if they address it, they'll address it in a very brief way. What the background is for that next generation that may or may not have seen the movies from the last 10 or 15 years, or read comics at all. But this is great news. What it means is we're going to see Spider-Man probably in the Infinity War, which is phenomenal. That's just great news. We're also going to see likely his introduction into what I think is just perfect. It really works out well into the Civil War. Civil War is a storyline, probably one of the most famous and most successful of those year-long arcs, or series-long arcs that they did across most of the Marvel universe. That pitted, if you don't know, Iron Man basically against Captain America, and a lot of it had to do with the secret identities of the superheroes having to be unveiled, or basically they had to work for the government, or they were considered outlaws. And it kind of flipped the Marvel universe on its head, because a lot of villains said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to get a paycheck, and I work for the good guys, and I get to wear basically a badge to fight the good guys. I get to work for the government, get sanctioned, and I get to beat up on the bad guys. I mean, the good guys legally." That was a boon for them. But for a lot of good guys that just said, "Hey, I'm not hanging up the cowl. I'm not taking off the mask. This is my secret identity. There are people that could be at risk here." They fought against it, and one of the most notables was Captain America, because it took away people's freedoms. And Tony Stark, Iron Man, bought into it completely and said, "Hey, this is for the good of all." And it was a big moral issue, a political issue. and it's the kind of issue that even though it took place, I don't know, 8, maybe 10 years ago. I forget the exact date. If somebody wants to correct that, please feel free to put it in the notes. But it actually resonates still today. Issues of privacy, issues of being in control of somebody's identity, issues of the government, spy programs delving into your life or being able to have access. Whatever your political views are, this is not something that just was created in the current or even previous administrations. This is something that's been that's just evolved as technology has evolved and as world events have evolved, and it's carried over into comic books. And that's how it usually works. There's a lot of political themes, so this is a really powerful thing. But there's obviously a major moment for Spider-Man in the Civil War that now they can do on screen. And one of the great relationships was not only a relationship that built between Captain America and Spider-Man, but more importantly, a relationship that was built between Iron Man and Spider-Man, kind of a mentor to Spider-Man. Iron Man's Tony Stark became a very big figurehead with a person who didn't have a father for most of his life, and who grew up with his uncle who also died. So the fact that somebody stepped in and was willing to kind of give this kid a chance, who always seemed to be beaten down, it was a big deal for him, and that's something that we get to see. We get to see that relationship, and we get to see that pull and push and that tug with moral implications and with the relationships that he has with characters in the Marvel Universe. What I'm really going to miss is some of the interactions that Spider-Man had with like, for instance, during the Infinity War, where the X-Men were present, and we're not going to probably see that. That's probably a long shot. I know there's been some talk and negotiations with Fox, but Fox is too entrenched with Marvel, with the mutants and with X-Men, to hope that would happen anytime, so that we could see them and be involved in Infinity War. And it would probably be too much of a heavy lift. It's one thing to insert one character; it's another thing to insert a whole entire new team. In any case, this is great news. So for anybody who's a big comic book fan or a big Marvel fan, I think that it would be nice to see a better penned, a better written, and a better and appropriately inserted Spider-Man character into the Marvel Universe and interacting with these other characters. Maybe we'll see Cosmic Spidey or Spidey Thor or stuff like that we've seen, some of the weirder stuff. But there's been some great interactions with all these different characters. So let's see how this turns out. How it unveils. We'll probably start seeing this again in the Civil War movie and in his solo movie within the next couple of years. So 2016, 2017, somewhere around then. In any case, the next thing is who's going to play him. I'm sure there's going to be a who's who list of young guys who you have the right body type and have some acting chops, some comedic chops too, and are athletic. I mean, yeah, you can certainly put a stunt double who can do the action when the mask is on, but you want somebody who's going to actually be able to look the part reasonably well otherwise, and be able to reasonably do some of these activities. So I don't know. I'm not really very familiar with some of the younger actors, especially the younger male actors. But if people have any thoughts on who might be somebody who might be appropriate, feel free to put that in the comments. And also, the biggest question is it going to be Peter Parker? I mean, Peter Parker is obviously Spider-Man. He's Spider-Man to me. I grew up him being Spider-Man, but in the Ultimate Universe, Miles Morales was pretty popular, and I think that they're very hung up on the fact that they want him to be a person of ethnicity, a person of color, and I know there's a lot of pushback with stuff like that when they change that for the movies versus the comics, and there was even silly stuff about people not being happy about that in the Ultimate Universe when he was, I think he was he's a Hispanic kid, Miles Morales, and people had problems with that. Just the same way I guess people who are religious fanatics have a problem with Jesus not being portrayed as a completely white guy when he was born, and in a part of the world where people were of color. Right? They were not pale white, looking like the figure that we see from European artwork, and that's a whole other political issue that I won't get into any further. But Miles Morales could be who they introduce as Spider-Man in the Marvel movies instead of Peter Parker. We might be leaving Peter Parker behind. And here's another reason why. I put up a video a little while back, maybe a week or two back, that deals with where Marvel is going in the comic books. Now, the Ultimate Universe is a different universe. It's an alternate reality, and I don't know if there was an intention that it might overtake. They might stop the long time continuity titles for characters, and then eventually, if the Ultimate Universe really sold well, they would continue on with that. But however the politics or the business practices or the financial stuff occurred, Ultimates did well in some cases and didn't do it in others. And there was already an announcement previous to this for a while ago that the Ultimate Universe was going to start going away. The Ultimate version of these characters is going to start going away. But what the biggest announcement was recently in the past week or so was that Marvel is doing kind of another, not a retcon, but kind of a collision, a kind of a Crisis on Infinite Earths version like DC did, and is apparently doing again. But they're doing a kind of a collision of all the different worlds and alternate universes, and they're all going to fight it out, and there's going to be an ongoing series revolving around their new Secret Wars story arc that's coming up this year, and it's going to really change the way the Marvel Universe is going forward. And what it's going to mean is all these different realities are going to collide, and the versions of those characters are going to have to fight it out or try to figure out how to save the worlds. But with that collision, only one will survive. So the first one in the very first comic is the Ultimate Universe is colliding with the regular Marvel Standard Universe, which is called Earth 616. They're going to collide. Those characters are going to actually compete with each other, not like in an arena, but they're going to be competing for the interest of their existence. And what's going to happen is that the world that remains after that is going to be a mishmash. Some characters that we know and love from the regular continuity, the Earth 616, are probably going to lose out in favor of those in the Ultimate Universe. And I think one of those is going to be Miles Morales' version of Spider-Man. I think we're going to see Miles Morales be the Spider-Man of the Marvel movies. So, and that helps a little bit because the origin's a little bit different. The background story is a little bit fresher, just because it's something that we haven't seen done to death. And I would prefer it to be Peter Parker personally. I would rather it be that, but I don't have any problem with it being Miles Morales. I don't have any problem with them going in a slightly new direction. We're trying to, adjust. But I do feel that we're going to start seeing the movies follow some of the things that are happening in the books. And I can only hope that one day Fox and Marvel find some way to bring the creativity and the control of what goes on screen and the stories and the actors and the way they're portrayed for X-Men and mutants to go back to Marvel. I hope that they find some way to do that. I don't think we're going to see that over the next 8 years or 5 years at least, because there's so many movies coming out on Fox's side. But I'm thrilled that Sony was happy to do that. When we saw some of the issues that happened in the news with Sony going back a number of months, it was suspected that some of the traps and trips that have prevented this from happening, thought so as much as a year ago, or that this may never happen, probably allowed some of that to happen. And if you don't know what that is, go do some Googling and try to figure out what that is. But hey, great news! Marvel's getting one of their boys back, and we're going to see him on screen with Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, and that's wonderful. Let me know what you think. And if you have any input on this, and we'll have more Warhammer and other types of, Mordheim and other types of analysis and news and rumors coming up soon. Have a great day, everybody.